Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I'm Chose Cora and today I'm talking about a very important topic, the topic of self-love. When I first heard the topic of self-love, I had equated it with selfishness, egoism, or some brand of self-grandiosity for people who are narcissistic and think that they're better than everyone else. However, I soon learned that this could not be farther from the truth, because when we are walking in self-love, we are walking that line of humility, of being humble. And humility can really be seen as the centerpiece of a spectrum of worthiness. On one side, we have an inferiority complex, which is where we think that everyone else is way better than us. And then on the other side, we have a superiority complex in which we think we're better than everyone else. And when we're in humility, we understand the truth that we are not better or worse than anyone else, but rather we are exactly the same. And therefore, we are just as deserving of our own love, support, compassion, respect as any person that we love, our mother, our siblings, our children, our best friend, and whoever else. You've probably heard the saying that you can't pour from an empty cup. Or like they say on the airplanes, you must first put your own mask on before you are able to assist anyone else with their mask. And what these phrases are essentially trying to tell us is that if we don't look after our own emotional, spiritual, mental, physical well-being first and foremost, then we're not going to be able to show up as our happiest, most vibrant selves for anyone else in our life. And the archetype that probably exemplifies this most is the archetype of the very busy single parent. This is somebody who works a 9 to 5, or maybe they work 2 or more jobs. And they're in this constant cycle of go, go, go. They're going to work. Then as soon as they're done with work, they're off to pick up the kids, and they're taking the kids home and they are cooking dinner. They're doing baths. They're doing bedtime stories. And then they're exhausted, so they go to bed. And in the morning, it's all about breakfast, getting ready, trying to catch up on housework, and then boom, gotta go back to dropping the kids off at school, going to work, and it's just never ending. And what happens is this parent never has a single moment of time which they are dedicating to their own well-being and their own happiness, their own fulfillment. And it becomes quite ironic because ultimately they are doing this for the benefit of their children, to take care of their children so that their children might grow up and have access to better opportunities. But it actually ends up being to the detriment of the children, because we always emulate what is shown to us, what is modeled to us by the adults in our lives. And so if we see our mom or our primary caregiver always running around, always sacrificing any and everything that would make her happy or what she desires in life, then we are eventually going to follow suit. We're going to internalize the message that what we want doesn't really matter, that we should always put other people's wants and needs before our own. And that's simply because that's what we saw modeled to us when we were growing up. In addition to this, the parent is always physically and emotionally drained, and so when they are spending time with their kids, it's like they probably are not very able to be present and actually enjoy and make the most out of that time. So how does a busy single parent start making room for self-love? Obviously, this sounds like a very difficult task because they already spend every waking moment taking care of their kids, and they are just trying to make ends meet with the rest of their time. And it's probably not very likely that they will have time for these other more luxurious activities that are part of the self-love prescription, right? Like taking bubble baths, going on a walk, spending time in nature, reading, doing things by themselves. However, once we make the decision that self-care and self-love is a priority, and that taking care of ourselves is every bit as much important as taking care of everyone else and our other obligations, then it becomes a little bit easier, because then we start thinking, okay, well, every time I get a babysitter, it's only for these things that I have to do, like when I have to be at work or fulfill another obligation. But what if I start getting a babysitter for times when I just want to be alone and decompress and spend time with myself and take care of myself? Or what if the next time my house is a complete mess and it feels unmanageable, I can enlist the help of a friend to come help me, so that it takes half the time to do it and I can dedicate a little bit more time that day to myself, to meditating or drawing or writing or just doing something that fills my cup. And why is it that we find it so difficult to ask for help? This is another aspect of self-love, actually, because a lot of times when we see someone else struggling, we are totally ready and willing to be of service and to help them. But when we're struggling, we start telling ourselves a story like, oh no, I'm independent, I can handle it. And what seems on the surface level as having too much pride, actually, when we dig a little bit deeper, equates to us just not actually feeling worthy on a core level of being able to ask for and accept the same goodwill and service that we would so readily and freely offer someone else. And that's really what's at the core of this self-love teaching, is taking an inventory of all the things that we do for our loved ones and turning it around and saying, okay, now in what ways am I willing to do these same things for myself? Examples might be, how many times do you call somebody or text them to check in and see how their day is going, or how they've been feeling, what they've been thinking about, or just how they've been in general? And the answer is probably a lot. For your closest people in your life, you're probably doing this every day. So how often do we actually do this with ourselves? When do we sit ourselves down and say, how have you been feeling? What's been going on with you? What do you need more or less of in order to feel more supported in life? What have you been desiring lately? What have you been dreaming about? So one way that I really like to do this with myself is sitting down and journaling about these specific questions, or going to the park and just kind of meandering around, enjoying the scenery, but just being super present with myself and my thoughts, or even just staying at home, daydreaming on my bed and being present with those thoughts. But the key concept here is to really listen, because it is often said that we are the only ones who can get our needs met. We're responsible for meeting our own needs. But how can we do that? How can we advocate for our own needs in life if we're not even sure what those are? I know a lot of times in life when I'm feeling unheard or not listened to by people in my life, it's often because I'm not really listening to myself or checking in with myself. And speaking of talking and listening, another way that we can love and support ourselves more is by paying attention to our inner dialogue. I know that when I started doing this, when I started sitting back and just being the observer of my own thoughts, I realized that the way I talked to myself was pretty negative and pretty toxic, even abusive. I would say things to myself that I would never say to another human being, things that often amounted to my being lazy, selfish, ignorant, or some other very undesirable quality or projection. So once I started doing this, I would gently shift the context and content of my inner dialogue to something a lot more gentle and kind, something that I might normally say to a child or a best friend. And as I did this, my inner dialogue not only began to change, but my whole attitude towards myself began to change. I began to view myself in a much more positive and loving light, and it has been truly transformational to my self-love journey, which is why this is a tool for self-love that I absolutely highly recommend. And lastly, how often do we spend quality time with ourselves? This is something that we do a lot with the people that we love. We spend time getting to know them, bonding, cultivating a deeper relationship, getting to know their likes, their dislikes, etc. But when it comes to ourselves, most of us spend very little, if at all any, quality time. And this time is extremely important because it allows us to develop a deeper connection with ourselves so that we can really get to know what is it that we like to do and who are we on a deeper level. That way we can be more grounded and centered in who we are and are less likely to get lost or washed away or overly influenced by the bigger personalities or energies outside of us. It also gives us a rock solid foundation for the most important relationship we will ever have in our lives, which is, of course, the relationship we have with ourselves. As we make the choice to be unconditionally loving with ourselves, it's very important to also make the choice to be unconditionally present with ourselves. When we try to avoid, sidestep, or dilute our negative emotions and feelings by drinking alcohol, getting high, watching TV, scrolling through social media, or any of the many other indulgences and vices of our culture, we are sending ourselves the message that we are only willing to be there for ourselves during the good times. And any other time when we're feeling sad or depressed or lonely, we are essentially going to abandon ourselves. We're not going to be there for ourselves. And this represents a highly toxic relationship dynamic that we must be willing to confront and remedy as we step into self-love. All of these insights about self-love are coming from my own personal self-love journey. Even though I don't have any kids, my lifestyle was once not unlike that of the aforementioned single parent archetype. I was always on the go. All of my energy was dedicated to either work or school and not much else. It was like if I wasn't engaging in some type of activity that was moving me towards my goals, I didn't make time for it. And that included self-love, taking time to check in with myself and really get to know myself, spend time with myself, and all of those things. And inevitably, this lack of self-love led to inevitable cycles of burnout, where I would have these crazy emotional and existential breakdowns that I would just try to gloss over or cover up with the use of alcohol or other self-sabotaging behaviors. And it really was not a good time in my life. I remember being sick a lot, and it wasn't because I wasn't eating healthy. I was also exercising a lot. But the thing is, my body knew that the only way it could get me to slow down and take a day off was if I literally got sick. And that's what happens. Our bodies are incredibly intelligent beings. And if we are not giving ourselves the real medicine that we need on a soul level by doing the things that make us feel spiritually and emotionally lit up, then our body often does respond in the form of illness, sickness, disease, or other forms of pain and discomfort. And this is really why we must start treating self-love and self-care and rest with the same respect and reverence that we give to productivity and work and being on the go. Just like how you need to fill up the gas tank in your car if you expect to get anywhere, we must be filling up our emotional spirit, our well-being, and energy levels if we expect to make any lasting progress in life's endeavors. There are countless ways to actually practice self-love, just as there are countless ways to express your love for someone else. But the first and most important step to being on a journey towards self-love is to make the decision, to make an unwavering commitment that self-love is a priority in your life and that you will make time to practice it. And that's exactly what I am hoping you will get out of this video, and what you will choose to do from here on out, to make a decision to love yourself now, today, and every single day, and start brainstorming ways that you can put that into action, because our decisions are nothing if they are not backed up by action. So thank you all so much for watching this video. If you found value in this video, or if you would like to share insights around your own self-love journey, I highly encourage you to do so in the comments below. Otherwise, please like this video, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already for more inspiring and uplifting content. Other than that, I invite you to find one thing that you would do today to really love yourself more fully. Thank you so much for watching, and have a blessed day.